Hello and happy freaking Monday to you. My name is Samuel Trapp. I'm coming to you live from the Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Art Studio. You can call in anytime, 573-746-8020. You can listen live all the time, damradio.com/live. Or you can come back later and listen to all the podcasts by going to damradio.com/podcast. Or if you just specifically like international flavor, which we know you do, you're going to go to internationalflavor.com. And every once in a while we get a little bit, a little bit pushy with the powers that be. And we get on Civic Outlaws every Friday. And we, we throw out some good words about some people that I think might not necessarily be good people. That's probably a bad thing to say, but power grabbing, you got to grab that power. When you need your power, by God, you better take it because you're not going to get a chance twice. You need that power. So, big in the news, and I haven't been able to get the full meeting transcript for you, which I would like to do. But Mr. Putin, he met with a bunch of soldiers. So there is a bunch of things going on about the war in Ukraine. It is. People are getting frustrated by it. So there's been a change over the last couple of months. If you haven't been paying attention, we're back in the world to the proper stuff, the YouTube friendly variety, and the Western media love variety would say that Russia is losing now, based on the stuff that Russia's been winning for a long time. If it's a long and slow slog, and some people disagree with that, with how the war is being prosecuted, I suppose would be a good word to say it, by the Putin side. But you have Zelensky cruising the planet, sending out threat letters and surrender now letters, and you have Macron and Merz and Starmer getting together with the Green Goblin and talking about we're with you till the end. We have the Trumpster over the weekend on his birthday. I suppose he got a call. Well, I know he got a call from Vladimir Vladimirovich to wish him happy birthday, and he took 55 minutes out of his busy birthday to meet with well, that's not right. That is no way correct. You bunch of a-holes. Okay. Sorry, I got something being done and I was checking on it and I'm interrupted. But 55 minutes out of your day by the old Trumpster is a good deal. So 55 minutes they talked. And allegedly the content had a lot to do with Iran and Ukraine. And Ukraine, that's just empty talk. And at the end of it, allegedly, the geniuses that are going over to settle this conflict, who are they? Kushner and Witkoff. Okay, they haven't done crap so far, and I think they'd be much better off in a deal for the United States. Why don't they work on this? How about this? This is where they would shine. Interstellar variety shining for these two. If you put them to work getting rid of excess government lease property or government property subject to lease that they can't get rid of because the idiotic rules in the government for buildings that you are paying for anyway. And so, if you were in your personal life, you'd just declare bankruptcy and move on. The United States can't declare bankruptcy. Well, they can. They probably should. It wouldn't surprise me from the Trumpster go, sorry, America's bankrupt. Put this in front of a judge and have a judge decide what gets paid and what doesn't, because that's what had happened in the bankruptcy code. And I wonder which state the United States would pick. So if you know anything about bankruptcy law at all, in any basically federal type of law, like IRS law, bankruptcy law, pick stuff that would now bankruptcy might not necessarily fit the clean variety of everybody else's, but I mean of being national. But it's a national rule. Okay, the U.S. allows bankruptcy. A certain state can't go, nope, you don't get to go bankrupt because bankruptcy exists. But what a state can do and does is it has its own bankruptcy limits. So the inside of a federal law, when you create a federal law, you have a little carve-out section where they don't finish or they leave it vague, and then the states can come in and interpret that portion of the law for themselves. And one of it has to do with exemptions and whatnot, where you can what you get to keep. And I don't know the rules today, but years ago when I was practicing law, you could have, for example, in Missouri, $15,000 in equity in a home, $3,000 equity in a car. If you file bankruptcy, you want to do it in Texas or a state like that, you basically get to keep everything and you walk away from all your debt, right? And I went to law school in Texas, and it was pretty funny because there's a chunk on the bar exam having to do specifically with bankruptcy because everybody runs to Texas to do their bankruptcies. And so anyway, on a bigger picture, maybe the United States, Donald Trump could run to Dallas, get a, I could point him to a friend of mine, does bankruptcy down there, and he could, do bankruptcy for the United States of America and wipe out that 39, pushing 40 trillion in debt that, we only have one trillionaire on the planet. And we have one debtor on the planet with 40 times as much debt as Elon Musk has income in a year. Now, that is depressing. What a country we live in. Isn't that great? Anyway, on the other side of the planet is a country called Russia, Mother Russia, and it's led by Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. And Vladimir Vladimirovich gave a speech. They had a meeting with soldiers. And the reason I bring it up to you is because we started my sort of rolling conversation with the fact that that the impression that people are trying to give over here in the West is that somehow Russia is losing this war. Admittedly, on my part, and starting to be on the part of the pundits on the Russian side of the planet, is the fact that the continual and aerial bombardment of Russia isn't all that popular in Russia. Now, you're far more likely, yesterday the old Green Goblin posted he had new poll data from Russia that said that Putin's popularity rating has dipped. It's gone from like 84, 85% down to 65 to 70%, and he's parading this around like, it's his victory, that it's working, we got him, it's working. Well, I haven't been there recently. Still waiting on my passport, Russian consulate. Please send it. I need to go to Russia and get a temperature gauge and gauge the people's Putin love level, which I tend to do when I go over there. And I'd really like to go to some of the places that are getting attacked by these drones. So drone warfare has become what what we do. I mean, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Army, we are really disadvantaged today. The playing field is leveling. For Iran to strategically defeat the United States or hold them at bay for as long as they have is a couple of testaments to two things. And the first one is people are tired of war. And people don't like it. Americans don't like it. I don't think Trump is as popular as he was. He's certainly not with me, with some of the things that he is doing, which I disagree with. Have a big old something just crashed outside. Maybe, you know how you hear that screech, and then you don't get that satisfying crunch at the end when you hear all these brakes, and then you don't hear the boom at the end. You get all depressed. Well, we heard the boom, and today we got the boom, and so we have it. Anyway, the fact is that drone warfare is a fact these days. And point number two, because I said point number one was the fact that people hate war, and point number two is everybody can play a video game, and war has turned into a video game, and they're regularizing it. Next thing you know, somebody's going to get one of those robot-style, great big, instead of a tank, you got a big robot that runs around and shreds thing like a transformer, one of them kid toys. He gets to turn into a robot, a war robot to that you can lead around. Elon Musk could build one. I'm sure they got ideas to build one and just go in and destroy and tear things down and rip them up. And so war has become far more abstract. And, the people losing their lives on the front line, the old Green Goblin absolutely does not want to broadcast that fact, that he can't fill the front lines. I watched 60 Minutes Russia, listened to it whilst driving a long distance this past weekend. And I listened to 60 Minutes, and they were interviewing some people on the front lines and talking to them about it. And there were horrible stories about this boosification, and they showed repeatedly video after video after video of these guys. There was a guy they picked up and they were interviewing him in the back seat of his wife's of the car that took him. They broke the window and opened the door on the car that he was in and hauled him out and put him, and he was laying in the back seat of his car. And they took him out, beat the snot out of him. He had just come out of the hospital, for God's sake. And he was out of the hospital. Whatever he was doing in there, he was half naked, right? When he came out of the hospital, he's clearly groggy. And they're dragging him out of the car and put him in the back of another car. And they four boosification officers beat the snot out of him. I don't mean to laugh about this. This is freaking sad. And threw him in the back of this car. And then his wife is videoing in the car when they're pushing her away. And they get it, but there's the car, broken window. These guys are beating the snot, and they're four healthy young men throwing this middle-aged dude who just got out of the hospital in the back of a car and taking him to the boosification center. This is what's going on, and these are not AI-generated videos, okay? And there's these videos. They are frightening. They are. The only way you can travel anymore, and people are starting to take action against them, like bands of people. You can't go anywhere without taking a band of people. If you're a solitary man walking down the street, you better watch out. You're going to get some boosification right now. And time of day doesn't matter. They are very, very short. And but nobody's focusing on these things. They're all focusing on the fact that Zelensky is not talking about this. No way. What Zelensky is talking about is the defeat that he has put upon Russia. Now, that is a complete lie, but the fact that everything is done without people anymore, and he doesn't need people, all he needs is more money, and he can kill the people on the front lines. Russia took over, what's the name of the city? There's a couple, they're like Kramatorsk is right there. They're getting ready to take over Kramatorsk, which is a big, I think, metallurgy and stuff like that in Kramatorsk. And they've got these big factories over there. And they are putting, and Ukraine, meanwhile, is pulling people out of these areas in the western Donbass, which there's nothing left. And Russia's almost done to the end. It's like down to 10% or something of what is left of on the Ukrainian side that they're fighting for. And some of these big cities that are being fought for are really the final front line, as it were, for these people and for Ukraine, I mean, in order to keep it. And they're gonna lose. They are losing. It's truly sad what is going on in Ukraine, and worse still is the advertising that goes on this side of the planet about how wonderful things are going in Ukraine, because they are not wonderful. And the people are sick of war. They're sick of war in Iran. They're sick of war in Ukraine. And the G7 meeting is supposed to be going on here. Is it today? I'm pretty sure it's today. It's probably already been going on because we're 7-8 hours behind them. And so Geneva, ahead of the summit, the police were, they're demonstrators in Switzerland, big time. Riot police in Geneva were clashing with protesters yesterday. There's a group of 7 summit that's going to happen in France. And the violence disrupted a no G7 demonstration that drew thousands of people. Geneva is about 30 kilometers from a French resort town on Lake Geneva, where the G7 summit is scheduled to take place Monday through Wednesday, and Trump is supposed to attend. The Swiss authorities closed 25 of 35 border crossings, citing security. They don't want people to go over there and protest, say close a border. Around 60 organizations representing causes including feminist groups, trade unions, supporters of Palestine, Kurdish statehood, took part in the Geneva March. Organizers said 20,000 people attended, and a crowd of 7,000 was at the start. And violence, did come up. The police were there with the big hoses, There was windows of a bank that were knocked out. A Tesla car was burned out, but it wasn't clear if it was deliberate or not, but it caught fire. Elon Musk, the co-owner and CEO of Tesla, is the world's first trillionaire after SpaceX raised $75 billion. And if you're that close, I guess it really doesn't matter. What's another $75 billion? I mean, come on. It's among friends. How about throwing us $1 billion? Toss me $1 billion, and you'll be happy you did it. That's what I'm saying. Give a little bit of your money to me. Give a little bit of your fame. No, I don't want any fame. I just want the money. Okay, just give me the money. Apart from these clashes, there was a 5-kilometer march that took along the shores of Lake Geneva, which passed near the UN headquarters, and quarters, where people they live. It's a whole region. And they were loud and colorful, but contained, is what they say. They chanted slogans against fascism, against imperialism, and capitalism. One picture, a banner, described President Trump as a dinosaur, and he's devouring the earth. Okay, Donald Trump, the dinosaur, is devouring the earth. So the G7, this is the funny part for me, and the reason I'm telling this. The G7 was formed in 1973 as a club of the world's largest economies. But his influence has declined because none of them are the largest economies. So especially China has gained greater weight in global economy. Critics argue that the format is very outdated and far less relevant than even the G20, but they're pushing toward the BRICS and stuff like that. Zelensky isn't on the G7 meeting list, but guess who's going to be there anyway? The Green Goblin. They're trying to, he's expected to attend to seek what? More money. More money to fund Kiev's drone war, because that's all they got left is a drone war. And Politico reports that Ukraine hopes to raise up to $20 billion on his visit. Well, if the old, we can't have Elon Musk giving him too much money, because then he might dip below the 1 trillion mark. If he got below there, that would be... He's no longer a trillionaire. It's going to be flexible. So, Green Goblin, don't expect anything from the old Elon Musk. But it's a pretty cool photo. Maybe I should post it on my website. The dinosaur Trump. I love his hairdo. It's very nice. And he's devouring the earth. So it could be worth. I'll save the image. We'll save the image in my Sam folder, because that's what we do here at Damn Radio. We save things in the proper place. Isn't that right? Of course, I can't find it, but, oh well. Can't have everything. Garage isn't big enough, If I had a bigger garage, maybe I could have everything. Let's see. We are going to save this dinosaur. We're going to save him. And then we had... here's an opinion piece for you. But I'm not going to share it with you till after I tell you what happened with the old Putin over the weekend. So last week, they were Russia Day came and went. And he invited to the Kremlin. They came to the Kremlin. There's a huge set of tables, probably 30, 40 soldiers, all in a big round sort of format, but it wasn't round, it was square, sorry. But it was all the tables put together so they could each look across and see Vladimir Vladimirovich, and he had a very senior Department of Defense guy in the room. And basically, they televised a, 45-minute speech of... a meeting of Putin to take their questions. And these guys were not generals. These guys were, they were frightened to be there and speaking with Putin. One guy was stuttering all over himself. And he's just like, he kept going, listen, excuse me, I'm very... overwhelmed here trying to speak to you. And young man, maybe 30, if that. And the average age in the room was pretty young, these young soldiers. And captains, sergeants, they had a couple of praporshchiki, warrant officers, what that would translate to, those types. And then so it's basically your frontline supervisory forces, like what I was in the Army as most I ever was platoon sergeant, right, running 60, 80 guys, right. And so this is those type of people, the commanders of frontline units. All these guys were on the front lines. And they were talking about their needs during the war, and they got the chance to ask questions. And I don't believe these questions were propaganda. Were put together as questions that were there. And I was trying to, and I thought I had already done it, gotten the full translation of it, but I haven't. I might get it for you for tomorrow. But the important point was they were all talking about technology. They were all talking about we're winning. And they were also talking about, but our hands are somewhat tied. And, we want to go forward. We want to do more. and all these guys were. He said he told the Minister of Defense, he said, "Hey, I want you to give all these guys a couple of days of rest." Now, for me, I thought that was a weak point of the session. I don't think I'd have offered that were I him. Those guys were clearly not there for vacation, and they didn't come to get a rest in Moscow. But as he was going around the room, he interviewed one guy. He said that he was from whatever region, and I didn't catch the region, and I wasn't taking notes because I was driving. And but he said to the kid, and the kid, the kid couldn't have been, I don't know, 30. He was a young man, and he stood up and he said, "Listen, I'm from," and they introduced themselves. "I'm from this area. I do this. I'm a frontline, artillery commander, and this is what I do. I have a team of 20 guys. I do this, and this is my part in this war that's going on." And Putin interrupted him, and he said, "You're from that region?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "That's our largest coal region." And he said, "Yes." He said, he goes, "Have you worked in the coal mines?" And the guy goes, "Yeah. My family is where," he said, "for generations, people have worked in those coal mines in our, how are things there?" And they talked for a few minutes about coal production, or a few seconds. I mean, a few minutes. No, they didn't. The whole conversation with the guy was about 4 or 5 minutes, and he spoke with this kid, and this kid was like, "Yeah. Our region is growing. I'm glad to be representing my region and the coal of whatever." And he worked in the mines. So did his family, all his brothers and mothers and stuff like that. And now he's how long have you been in the military? He's in the military for 4 or 5 years, and he went to the command school in St. Petersburg or wherever. And he did this with quite a few of them. Which command school, which this, and they have tons of command schools that he went over. And Putin's pretty well informed on where they go, what they do, and he was talking about it. And so this guy, and he tries to make them feel a little more comfortable, is what I'm thinking. That's what I would do if it was me, and that's what it seemed like he was trying to do. Public speaking is a kind of a tough skill. Years ago, I was in Toastmasters, and surprises me how people can't get up and state their point of view. That's one of the scariest things on the planet. And this guy, one of the first ones to stand up, not the coal miner guy, but he had a similar question to one of the first guys that stood up. And the first guy that stood up said, "Listen, I'm freaked out here." And he's stuttering all over trying to talk. And he's like, "Listen, excuse me, Vladimir Vladimirovich, uvažaемый," and he calls him, they call him the Supreme Главнокомандующий, which is basically Supreme Commander, and he's very, very, and they give the title. And the reason I always say Vladimir Vladimirovich is because when you speak to someone in Russia that you are unfamiliar with, you have to use the imя отчество, and the imя is the name, отчество is the middle name. That's your father's name, basically. It'd be like saying Sam, son of Clifford, whoever, Vladimir, son of Vladimir, basically is what they're saying. And it's a respectful way to talk. And so, Vladimir Vladimirovich is how they refer to him. But for him, he gets uvažaемый главнокомандующий and sometimes some other stuff. Uvažaемый is honored, or почетный would be honored. And you've got all these other words that you could throw in there to make it nice and flowery when you're going to speak to someone who you respect. But a respectful way to deal with them is find out what their father's name was. And usually that'll be there, for you to find out. And you don't just get to go, "Hey, Vlad, what's going on?" That's rude. Okay. And so this guy was up there, and he's like, "Listen, I'm totally freaked out." But many of the questions, the first guy, the second guy, they were talking about drones. And they were talking about, we make all this progress and we get and we're kicking the snot out of them up and down the 1,000 kilometers of front line, which is true. Then they are advancing slowly, churningly. Even Putin said it. He said that it was going slow. And I'm only telling you this as a backdrop for the article I'm going to share with you. And it's the geniuses that are running Europe don't get it. And Zelensky's that don't get, these guys are not somebody you just roll over with a few drones. And the fact that Putin may have dropped some in the polls because Zelensky has nothing left to throw at him except drones is a testament to propaganda arms and financing arms that are giving him the money to do it for their own reasons. That's the point of all of this. And when Putin started his speech and before he spoke with these guys and he talked quite a bit about the drones because many questions about the drones from a bunch of guys out there and what we can do and some suggestions. He suggested that one guy meet specifically with the head of the Department of Defense, that one of the, whoever the Glavna commander, the guy that was sitting right next to him from the Department of Defense. That guy, he was saying, look, you need to get with this guy because it looks like your ideas. And he says, untie the hands of the people on the front lines. And one of the conversations was, let us buy. We know how to fix some of these things and can do it ourselves. But just like in the regular army, you got to go up and, in the United States, I mean, where our ideas were accepted and desired, but the wheels of implementation go forever, and you never get to put them in. You may have an idea, that could save, I don't know, $100, on every part you put out. And the waste that I saw in the military was ungodly waste. And I'm sure they have something similar in any bureaucratic system is just a wasteful system. And you're overburdened with idiots that don't have jobs, and they just got to punch a button, and they hold the key to this rubber stamp that you need to, that's stuck in a box behind their desk. And the only way you can get that rubber stamp to get something stamped on your paper to give you the approval to go and buy this item or pick it up at the supply shop in the rear, where people have, where the supply sergeant is you got to have this particular stamp from this particular sergeant who approves all these. So you got to go lick his rear end for a while. And then they give you the stamp and hold it out and know they have power over and lord it over you. And then you get to go to the guy in the back. If there's only one step, you just need the one stamp. If you need 6 stamps, Jesus, you're welcome to the United States Army. And then you finally get to go to the place where you get your stuff, and that guy makes you wait for an hour and a half and has a sign on it that says your failure to plan doesn't create my emergency. And basically, I'll get to you when I get to you. And how come you didn't think about this emergency 2 years ago when you should have? And, that's what these soldiers were bitching about, was bureaucracy. It's like, man, I had to go to Russia and open an arm of civic outlaws over there. Because what do we bitch about the most? Bureaucracy. So I could tell you a ton of stories about bureaucracy, but I'll give you a quick one. For 4 months, let's see, I bought a truck, I don't know, 4 or 6 months ago, a long time ago. And I mailed the paperwork to get my license plates, sent them off, shipped them away. They got sent back. Said, well, we don't accept the Missouri form. You need a Florida form. And here, the Florida form, you can download it here. It's like, Jesus, what the hell? Why don't you say that in your initial, nobody ever puts all the rules out there. Jesus, how are you going to get anything done? So how you gonna have bureaucracy with a job? You know, you don't have a job if you have something simple, and by God, you can't do anything on. So, long and the short of it is, 2 mailings and a trip to Florida, and I finally got license plates on my truck, which has been sitting gathering dust because I can't drive it because it's got no plates. And but now I finally got the freaking plates, and it was it was a nightmare, and only because, not only because I assume because it was going back and forth. And when I went down there, the funny part is I got there. They're open on Saturdays, and I went there and I got there at 9:20 in the morning, and I was number 68 that had come up. 68 people in front, 67 in front of me, in other words, and. So you're not, place is packed. It's like, holy crap, what are they sleeping here like it's a concert or something? But there's not a lot open, and so at any rate, I'm in there. I get up there finally at 11:15 in the morning. No, I'm sorry. It was 11:35 in the morning. They at 11:15 they said no more people can come in the door, and so 11:35, I get up there. I give them all my paperwork. I've already been through this twice by mail, right? And I give them all my paperwork, pass it over. The lady does it, and she looks at it. She goes, "I need this." I was like, "It's right there." She goes, "Yeah, but it doesn't say this on it. It doesn't say 0." And basically, I needed something from the car dealer to show that I paid them what was needed. There was a down payment number, a pile of money, and then there was another part that was going to be financed. And I said, no, it's got a lien. You just stamp lien and off you go. Of course I paid that, or I wouldn't be here with all that. She goes, nope. It's got to say paid or got to say 0. I said, but they don't do them that way. She goes, Florida ones do. I'm like, all right. So I get up. It's like, oh, shit, I got 20 minutes to figure this out. And, sorry to swear like that. And I said, I had 20 minutes to figure this out. I get out. I start harassing the BMW dealer up in Columbia. And sorry to give the name. I probably shouldn't. But I called him. I was like, Jesus, can you give me this? Here's the contract. Here's this. He goes, well, this is old. No kidding. I've been doing this from afar. And now I finally came down to get this done. This is why I'm here. And it's I don't want to drive and go to jail. Jesus, I'd love that, to get you for no plates and throw you in prison for 6 years. That'd be great. And so I coerced this guy to send me the paper. I go back up to the line. There's still, I go up to the same lady, and she's got another customer, of course. And I was like, and she goes, email it to this address. I email it to that address, and I'm interrupting the other people because, Jesus, I only got the one day. I flew down there for this. And so she says, nope, that won't work. You have to have this. And I was like, it says it right there. Nope, it's got to say here. I said, all right. So I called the guy back up. I said, hey, how's it going? That's not going to work. He goes, why not? I don't know. It's bureaucracy. Just put this on it. And he did. And he sent it back. And I stood there. And by the time, so now the line is there. The people in front of me were registering like 4 cars to this lady, right? She told me to wait till after them. And so I'm waiting for them, and they're having fun in the line, and there's things going on, and it's the place is starting to empty out. I was the very last person. I got out of there at 2:15. They closed at noon. I got there at 9:20 something, and that was it. Anyway, that was my bureaucracy. Well, these soldiers that are talking to Putin are bitching about what? Bureaucracy. I have an idea, he said. We all know, one of these guys stands up. He says, I have an idea. We all know that these things transmit at the between the ranges of I don't know, whatever gigahertz, 50 gigahertz and 250 gigahertz. And this band is where they are. And these guys, and the ones that we have don't go that low. They need to go a couple bands lower. I can go to a local shop and buy this sort of a bandwidth enhancer and I can. We could probably fix it on the front line. I need these things. I need to be able to do it, but I can't really do it. And then I also need the ability to get this idea to somebody and tell them what we need. And Putin says, "You've spoken to your commander." He says, "Yes, I've spoken to my commander, and I've gone forward." And the reason I tell you this story is it's because this is what, if Putin is losing the propaganda war, it's because this drone warfare is beating up things and blowing up girls' pedagogical school and killing 25 young students. The Ukrainians are brutal. And they are just brutal. They attack these things on purpose. There ain't no way they made that mistake, 3 times. And you go, and they've done it before. The beaches at the beaches at on the Crimean shoreline where they took what do they call those fragmentation grenades that shoot out little balls of BBs and stuff, and did it on a beach on a Sunday afternoon in Crimea. I mean, people don't even talk about this shit, but this is what they're doing. And they're doing it to bring the war home to the Russian people. And they're attacking non-military targets because there are people that have suffered in Ukraine as well. Okay? And now, but Russia, very, very, very few they don't intentionally target, and nobody can point to the intentional target. They've tried to, with the Bucha thing that was a fake, and then they talk about Russian disinformation and all that happy crappy. But when Putin is listening to these soldiers, I think something like that, a meeting like that, the reason I wanted to listen to it and watch it is because that is reality. Those guys, you think about it, and I'm sitting there thinking about it from the military point of view of Sam, the young sergeant who was in charge of a lot of stuff, and had at one point the students in the student realm. I had 100 students that reported to me, but in the combat prep in Fort Hood, Texas, the most I ever had was I was in a regiment, flight regiment, and we had small teams. I had like 12 guys. That's it. And but in combat, I had 3 helicopters, and because I was signed for them damn things. I don't fly a helicopter. I'm air assault qualified, but I can't fly the damn thing. And I just jump out of them, or anyway. It's the bureaucracy and the frontline stuff. These are frontline. You can imagine what the commanders of these guys are all watching. I guarantee it. The guys in charge, the guys at the table talking to Putin are definitely watching. And these guys have got to be careful what they say. And they say, we greet you from the unit of whatever, 150th Guards, and we're frontline unit in the Savior Group of Forces or the Yuzhny Group of Forces, whatever. And we greet you and honor you from this unit. And now here's my question. And trust me, the commanders are watching. They go, but I hope this kid don't screw it up. Hope he doesn't point out anything bad about the unit and blah. I guarantee you, the boss is sitting in the back, or another office miles away. Obviously back on the front line, still going. Hope this guy doesn't screw it up for me. and the guy says, well, with these drone things, we can't work them because Jesus, the stuff you give us is 200 hertz out of range, and we can't get there. And Putin, here's Putin's answer to him. He says, "Have you spoken to your commanders?" "Yes, I have." "Have you passed this up?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Well, the wheels of progress, sometimes turn slowly." He said, "What I want you to do is meet with this guy right here. He's the afterward, you come meet with him." He said, "There may be things that you can do." And he said, "How long are you guys here?" And he said something to the whole crew. Well, they sent him up. Have you been to Moscow before? And some of them yes, some of them no. And he goes, well, we're going to keep you here a couple of days. How'd you like that? We're going to keep you here a couple of days. You relax. You find out the city. You meet with this guy. I want all of your ideas. And the commander, the Department of Defense guys, yeah, he's right. He takes it, and it was such a real meeting. You know what I mean? It was a real event, and for these soldiers, obviously something huge, and it's. I don't know. It was worth the hour that it took me to watch it, or to listen to it. And he Putin is an interesting fellow, no matter how you slice it. And I believe he's got his country's, just like Trump, he's got his country's best interests at heart as he sees them. Is he always right? Not remotely. Is he doing a good job, and is he liked by the people? Generally, yeah. So, and I feel similar about Trump, with plenty of reservations, and I got reservations about Putin too. But Putin's not my Glavna Commander-Ushi. He's not my supreme leader. My supreme commander. It's not him. Mine is, and I'm supposed to bitch about Trump. And watching that meeting with these guys are guys who were allowed to bitch. So you bring them in, and I'm telling you, and you know how you start a trend, like nobody wants to be the first one to bitch, and the first one gets up and he says, my name is Semyonovich or whatever it is, and I'm in the front lines and whatever. My God, I'm really scared to be here. I can't talk, and he's stuttering, and Putin's like, listen, just calm down. It's okay. We're very glad we're here. We honor you. We think you're, and he put the guy at ease, just like any normal person trying to solve a problem would. He put the guys at ease and talked to them. And the whole point of this meeting was that they could come and bring their issues and concerns from the front line, and that Putin could do exactly what he's doing, which is appear to be listening, paying attention. And he was. And he listened, and he talked to these guys. And sure, it's propaganda, them posting that and it being available on YouTube, which was taken down. I can't find it now. You have to go search for these things, and it's crazy. And this is it's the lack of freedom of speech in the West, or the fact that they just get rid of stuff. I still bitch about Panchenka not being available anymore on YouTube, that she got too confrontational. I listened to Alex Christoforou, as you know, and he put up something, and he said he was blocked, and what do they call it? Throttling. He was throttled by YouTube for unpopular, he said some things about Ukraine, about Iran. You can't do it, or YouTube will throttle you. YouTube's Google. And, if you're not arguing with your AI that comes from Google, or your AI that comes from China, or your whether you're using DeepSeek, whether you're using Claude, whether you're using Grok, whether you're using ChatGPT, all of their data. And here's the problem. If there's a problem with the AI, this is why everybody, and why Putin talked about in his economic forum last week, which I brought to you, why he talked about we need our own AI platform, because otherwise you're getting LGBTQ crap thrown at you from the West. You're getting, you can't be rude to Donald Trump, or you'll get throttled on certain channels. You can't spout anything that appears to be anti-Israel, or you will get throttled. And that's That's what they do. Our freedom of speech is limited. Can I sit here and come to you live from the Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Art Studio? I sure can. And I can say whatever JR will allow me to say. And so far, he hasn't limited me. He hasn't said, well, you can't do that. And if he did, I'd be pissy about it, because my words are my words. My opinion are my opinion. I don't need Fox News, CNN, anybody else giving me my opinion and telling me what to think. I'm not telling you what to think. I don't care what you think. I'm telling you what I think. I mean, I shouldn't say it that way. That sounds rude. I do care what you think, but what you think, I might be able to influence, but I would never demand, that you bow down and go, oh, gee, that Sam's genius. He's right. No, Sam has his own opinion and you should have yours. And as long as it's developed and based upon a healthy review of the data at hand about a particular thing, great. And you can disagree. You can come to a different conclusion. You could watch the same video that I watched with the old Vladimir Vladimirovich and all those soldiers coming to him from the front lines and interrogating him and come to a different conclusion. I get that. That's freedom of speech. That's what I mean. But these guys were able to go and talk to him, and it's not like any of them are going to the gulag because they brought up that you don't have this 200 hertz range, and he was truly interested in what they had to say. And that was the important part. He wanted to know what they had to say. And everybody demonizes Putin. I'm supposed to be a Putin lover. Well, you that demonize him haven't listened. All you're getting are the tiny little chunks that they propagandize over here. Okay? And I'm going to take a tiny song break and hopefully be able to get a coffee during that. But there's a song that I've been meaning to play over here. It's a Russian song, but it's about Pikachu. You remember the little, what are they called? The little, I don't know what they're called. The little stuffed animals that the kids play with. It's not a gremlin. What do they call those guys? Shit, I don't remember. But he's a little Chinese dude, Pikachu. And they used to have these cards that everybody had these trading cards with all these little warriors, and Pikachu was one of them. And Pikachu, whatever his skills are, God knows, I don't know. But maybe he had bow hunting skills and nunchuck skills, kind of like Napoleon Dynamite, right? And so, he had skills. And so, anyway, there's a song about Pikachu, and it's a pretty funny song. Now, it's not that long, though. It's not going to give me time to get any coffee. So we'll make sure that Tatanya Kortukova is afterward. Matushka Zemlya is after Belaya Biryozinka. She's going to be second. But first, we'll get the Pikachu song, and I'll go grab a bottle of water or a coffee. Just a bottle of water is what I'm going to do. And then we'll take a break, and we will come back and have some more entertainment. Here she comes. Well, that is a pretty popular Russian song the last couple of years. And let's see. I wanted to share with you, Russia is answering these drone attacks. They're answering. And so when you watch what is going on financially, diplomatically, politically, everybody is still trying the same. I talked to you last week about the sanctions package number 21. Today's going to be the G7, the seven most worth, except for the United States, of course, the seven or the others, you just wonder, what are the changes? I mean, what do they really get out of meeting as a G7? What do they get is they get Macron, France is a tiny, relatively. I mean, when you go compare the rest of the world, what are they doing in G7? G7 presumes the top 7. The reason they made it was the top 7 economies. These countries inside the G7 aren't in the top 7. They're not. England's not. France isn't. Germany's if Germany's there, they're barely there. And so the world has changed since the G7. People, in fact, some of the protesting I was telling you about earlier is because it's irrelevant. What's relevant is more along the lines of the G20. And even that has some problems because only the chosen few get the chance to run the show. So that's what people are bitching about. That's why they're protesting. That's why they're starting crap on fire in places, is because the world is changing. And Trump and company, and I don't mean Trump specifically, but the dinosaur metaphor probably works. And I'm an old dude. So there you have it. So Russia and Answer has been doing, what do they call them? Mirror engagements? Your mirror engagement. And they're matching, and in fact, by far worse scenarios, they are escalating and bombing the snot out of Ukraine right now. And they confirmed strikes last night on more military facilities. A malfunctioned Patriot interceptor struck a historic monastery in Kiev. So they're blowing up monasteries now. They destroyed a Sevastopol yesterday, the big story. The Ukrainians are attacking things that mean something to Russians. Okay, now, one of the unspoken agreements in war is you don't destroy historic artifacts and buildings. You don't do it. And if you do, you're the lowest of low, in my opinion. You have suddenly, that's a line that you shouldn't be crossing. Do things accidentally occur? Sure. But Ukraine intentionally attacked a panorama of the Russian Navy, which has been an icon in Sevastopol forever on the Black Sea. And so what do? You destroy stuff that mean things to somebody. That'd be like destroying the local mosque or the local cathedrals, in a lot of these European cities, and destroying them. And what they're saying is the Ukrainians fired their own Patriot and hit a historic monastery. Now, Ukraine's going to use that to twist. Oh, look, they blew up our monastery. Well, if they did, and that's BS too, but if you're going to attack historic targets in Moscow and historic things that mean something to people, you should expect to hit. I don't know the facts about whether a Patriot malfunctioned and hit the monastery in Kiev. Hell if I know, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Russians did a mirrored response. And I'm not for it. You're destroying history. I hate it. I don't want you to do that. I'd love to go to Ukraine and see this historic site. I'd like to go to Russia. That's the freaking point of travel, is to see these things that you never get to see in life. I want to go to India and do the same thing. And I've been to 57 countries, and what do I always go see? Historic places. I try to find the oldest crap in the area and go see it. And I go to tea plantations, coffee plantations, and alcohol distilleries. And those are my 3 kind of hobbies. I want to go see these things. If I go to Mexico, I go to a tequila factory. If I go to a Caribbean place, I want some rum, and I want to figure out how they make it. I go to Russia, I go to a vodka place. I go to Kentucky, I go to a whiskey place. Get myself a bottle of whiskey, and shop around at 5 or 6 other places. But history, whiskey bottles you can replace. History, you can't replace that shit. You people are nuts. But the Russians have carried out overnight long-range attacks on military-industrial facilities in 3 Ukrainian cities, and they took out some airfields, conscript offices. That was announced this morning. The strikes last night involved drones and missiles from air, land, and sea platforms, said the ministry. And in a follow-up, they said a total of 16 industrial targets were hit. There was a plant that produced drone warheads and boosters for the Flamingo cruise missiles that Ukraine has been trying to use. They're taking over. What they've done is they're calling them the Flamingo, and they're starting to build plants based on French and British designs. Storm Shadow or whatever. They take all the design and say, well, since the technology, you don't want to share the technology, bring it over here. We'll build them here. Then they'll be Ukrainian missiles and not French or British or German. And we'll supply them with our own Elon Musk style, because Elon's paying for all their internet. We're going to get out. We'll boost a couple of our own satellites. I don't think Ukraine has done that yet, because they still have to be targeted with Western data because they don't have their own. So targeting, they still got to get it from somewhere, and so that's where they're going to get it. So the 16 industrials, including the Flamingo place, there was a strike on a postal terminal in Kiev. And for logistics, it delivered parts for drones and electronic warfare systems, the stuff that these guys were talking about, because the new drones fly on a different set of megahertz, and Russia has the drones that fly, they're wire guided, and so they can't be jammed. And so and that's what this guy was asking Putin. He said, we can't jam at this hertz level. They've changed their hertz level. We need a different one. I know where the parts are. I mean, he was pretty knowledgeable, and I know how to get it. So all these things tie together. So Moscow said a cinema studio in Kiev was struck because Ukrainian forces used that facility to program kamikaze drones for attacks on Russia. Ukrainian sources say that in Kiev, Kharkov, and Dnipro, the cities named in the Russian statement, they reported these attacks. The Ukrainian military said it had 70 incoming missiles and 600 drones, and a partial power outage in Kiev and disruption of rail services. Ukrainian media said, and they showed, and I got a video here you could watch on X, that showed a fire at one of the cathedrals at Kiev Pechersk Monastery, and they said the blaze was linked to the Russian operations, and the Russians say that it was a Patriot missile that did it. The Russian ministry said it does not target sites without military value and blames the damage on the U.S. Patriot interceptors, and they suggest a projectile malfunction due to old age. I malfunctioned due to old age. Kiev is complaining of a shortage of missiles and Patriots, and they don't have them, and they can't pay for them, which I don't understand. You got hundreds of billions of dollars coming to you. You sell one of your freaking dachas. Sell your villa in the Caribbean. The monastery has been the center of a prolonged dispute over control of its property for a long time. Ukrainians have been pushing for church assets to be transferred from the Orthodox Church to the government Orthodox Church of Ukraine, or to the state itself. So Kiev is trying to take over the monastery anyway. And Russian strikes are, the escalation in Russian strikes, or the drone strikes, is huge over the last month or so. We've been watching a very serious increase in the number. Kiev is wanting yet another $20 billion to pick up this week's while at the G7 meeting, and he'll get it. They'll give him more money. Oh yeah, okay, let me write you a check. Here you go, Green Goblin, have this. And give him some more money. And it's another $20 billion from Western backers. So last week, the Ukrainian strike caused damage to a museum in Sevastopol, dedicated to the defense of the Crimean Peninsula during the 19th century wars with Turkey, Britain, and France. And so an old facility, and the Ukrainians blew it up. So the attacks on Ukrainian conscription centers came hours after the largest protest in Kiev that was huge, sparked by forced mobilization. And the mass demonstration was broken up by riot police. They used tear gas, and it was a big deal. The anti-mobilization protesters, basically a crowd attempted to stop a gang from snatching a man off a street. And like I was telling you, the police used tear gas against dozens of protesters on Sunday night. An angry crowd gathered to defend a man who was being grabbed off the street by draft officers, and they're yelling at him. They're yelling at these draft officers, shame on you for what you're doing. And they ambush military-age men on the streets, at their workplaces, outside homes, in hospitals, and use pretty massive force against these guys when they try to run. So this is, we call it busification. Because they're shoved into buses. The busification. Autobus is the word. They call them autobusi, but a bus. So it's busification, that they shove them in a bus and get them up. But it's not even a bus anymore. It's a car. So 4 guys stuff them in a car. You see a bus coming, with busification stamped on the outside, but you don't see that on the cars. So now they just get out, beat the crap out of people in the streets, and then shove them in a car and get rid of them. Send them off to die at the front line. I don't mean to laugh about that, but this is what it is. The Deutsche Welle newspaper in Deutschland, in Germany, said Ukrainian military is hooked on drugs. Big report. Drug addiction is a growing problem among Ukrainian troops. But who wouldn't? You're losing your asses here and your lives in many scenarios. Growing problem among Ukrainian troops. Here we are 5 years in, and Deutsche Welle reported this, and cites the experience of former Ukrainian Marine Corps officer who was interviewed by them, said he's on drugs, and they attribute the problem to combat injuries, psychological exhaustion. Many servicemen spend months on the front line with no rest and prospects for demobilization. They all get busification and mobilization, but no demobilization. Narcotics are banned in the military, but heavy losses, lack of rotation, acute manpower shortages force wounded troops back to the front before they're fully recovered. And according to a report published last week, more than half of Ukrainian soldiers serving on the front line have great experience with drugs, alcohol, or a combination of both. No army in modern history has fought 4 years without rotation, says psychotherapist Igor Alfarov. He said this to Deutsche Welle. He said that when commanders do not grant leave and there is nobody else to do the fighting, the troops feel a definite sense of injustice, frustration. You can't do it. Family problems, I'm sure, exist, that many soldiers have relatives that live abroad, that live in the United States, live somewhere else, but they got to fight. And these spouses drift. This lady, one guy interviewed said, my wife plans to stay in Europe because there are prospects there for the children, but I'm at war in Ukraine, and every day, I get closer to death, basically. A former Ukrainian serviceman and a patient at a rehabilitation clinic said that drug addiction cost him his career. I had more than 200 men under my command and took part in a number of successful operations, he said. And that after being, his condition deteriorated, and that he lost control of everything because he got addicted to drugs after he got wounded. And earlier this year, a local resident rescued from Krasnoarmeysk in the Donetsk area was liberated by Russian forces in 2025. That part of the city, Krasnoarmeysk, told the newspaper that most Ukrainian troops in the city use drugs delivered by drone in the form of candies wrapped in camouflage packaging. And then intoxicated soldiers clashed with civilians and sometimes the incidents end in gunfire. So the Guardian reports that Ukrainian servicemen, in large numbers of them, are developing drug addiction, and the scale is kind of hard to assess because of no official data. And they link it in part to post-traumatic stress, and anxiety from prolonged combat exposure. So I don't know. It's this war not ending has effects on everybody, but on the front lines, Konstantinovka was taken. That's a big city. The Russians are claiming that they have taken that, and that really opens up the lines for the next two cities in Ukraine. My argument is that Ukraine is throwing all of these drones because that's all they have left are, people sitting in bunker style or basement style or metro rail style bunkers and operating drones into Russia or even on the front line, but they don't get any. They're not stopping the front line. The front line isn't stopping. And what's odd to me is they're not defending that Ukraine. The reason I believe they have nothing is because Ukraine is not defending its own country. It is on the attack and destroying historic artifacts, destroying civilian infrastructure, trying to kill regular non-military citizens, and that's all they have left. They can't get any more people. Their problem is manpower, and they don't have it. And all they're doing is making it worse. So you might get some limited pleasure out of bombing the snot out of Russia. Well, geez, we can get anywhere in Russia. Well, good for you. What's it going to do? How's that going to end in the end? How will it be? It's not going to change a damn thing because Russia's still advancing on the front lines. Russia is pushing hard in the summer offensives, and Ukraine's got nothing left. They sent Syrskyi, the general or the command general, into Konstantinovka himself. Was in there, so he's managing this. And if he doesn't save that, I imagine his command time will be over. Meanwhile, you have the Green Goblin. Nobody talks at all anymore about the fact that he's a dictator, about the fact that there's no elections and never will be. You're not getting elections. You're done. Zelensky runs that place. Zelensky's the emperor. But, he's going to be the Stalin of the UK. Ukraine, not the UK. Over there, they think he's Churchill. He's Churchill. That guy is not Churchill. Churchill was better dressed. It's maybe if he put a suit on once in a while. Maybe. But I doubt it. Let's see here. I wanted to share with you an article, an opinion piece by Tariq Amar, a historian from Germany, and he works on the issues of Russia, Ukraine, Western Europe, stuff like that. And he has some pretty good articles come up. And I'm going to share that with you, I think, probably at the end of the show here, because it's not that long. Let's see. You can't argue with a man observing the obvious. Welcome, Professor Obvious. We say shit like that to people. We are living in unusually perilous times. In the Middle East, the Israeli-American infernal duo have been on a rampage of war, state terror, all-purpose devastation, and genocide that, with a bonus, has also brought the world economy to the verge of cardiac arrest by clogging one of its vital fossil fuel arteries. Indeed, that particular risk is so obvious that even Germany's less than brilliant Friedrich Merz has long spotted it. In the Far East, Taiwan is ruled by a government so hell-bent on antagonizing their fellow Chinese mainland that Taipei's political reflexes seem almost as perverse as those in Berlin. In the West, you have German elite, which can't find enough billions to fork over to Ukraine when Ukraine and friends blow up Germany's vital pipelines and lethally cripple its already ailing economy. In the East, there is Taipei getting really, really angry when the Philippines and Japan start negotiating away Taiwan's maritime exclusive economic zone. Angry, that is, at Beijing. And in the EU, the garden of values that is really a swampy jungle of eternal confusion and corruption, the catastrophe that in its foreign policy is now obvious enough for several European bigwigs to gang up on the ragingly incompetent Kaja Kallas. Her tenure as the de facto EU foreign minister has been so breathtakingly blundering that her employers aren't merely itching to kick her out, but think about, in essence, abolishing her job. Being so horrible at something that you won't just get fired yourself, but take the whole shop down with you. Perhaps only the Baltic girl boss wonder could pull that one off, but then maybe it's really all just another power grab by the EU's German queen, the absolute queen, and U.S. Viceroy Ursula von der Leyen. Either way, frightful insanity abides. We could add more scary and grotesque evidence, but things are clear. It's a grim picture all around. I like how he writes. So, fair enough if you feel like being a big, sad downer and doom monger. Where it gets weird is when you get your scare priorities upside down. Granted, from the hapless NATO EU European perspective, Russia may look a little unsettling. After all, once you have waged years of proxy war, sanctions, and propaganda war against Russia, who knows what the mood really is like in Moscow. As a good NATO EU apparatchik, you certainly would not know, because you have displayed the foresight of a gnat by proudly not talking or listening to the Russians, is what I've been saying for years. So when you feel a little insecure, that might really be your bad conscience calling in a merely professional, not moral sense, which you are likely to lack. But generally speaking, the worse the stupidity and mistakes you have produced, but keep repressing, the higher the price. Old Sigmund Freud called it affective debility. In essence, it means that lying to yourself makes you dim. And once you're BSing yourself for years as if there's no tomorrow, you'll turn positively imbecilic. That's the only way to explain the fresh wave of transparently hysterical scaremongering about Russia in the West, in particular this time in Britain. Thus, on the occasion of the recent St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, centrist mainstream flagship The Independent came out with a fascinating piece of fiction masquerading as analysis. Under the clickbait title, "Puffy-Looking Putin is acting weirder than ever, and that should chill us to the bone," readers were treated to a highly imaginative horror tale about, in essence, a terrible loose cannon in the Kremlin pondering staged incidents and nuclear terrorism ready to blow up the world, or at least Europe, or maybe just Britain, because Russia is losing the war. And also, he looks puffy. All of this backed up, not really, by another statement from the high British military officer that things are as dire as never before. He and his comrades in arms, plus a few tweedy, spy gents and dames produce these screams at least twice a month. It seems to be a standing order. Indeed, there is such an inflationary overproduction of men and women in khaki with stiff upper lips crying big bad Russian wolf that even Politico has already produced at least one best of collection gathering the 5 doomiest Russian warnings from Britain's military. Perish the thought that any of this may have anything to do with fattening defense budgets or driving up the profit of His Majesty's military-industrial complex. Generally speaking, the West has a rich tradition of declaring Russia vanquished. It's President Putin at death's door or on the verge of being regime changed, and of course, Ukraine on the cusp of winning the war. Yeah, all three of those things are completely lies, and it's funny how often they come up. At the same time, they predict that Russia will attack all of Europe tomorrow. If you're losing a war against Ukraine and you can't win, how in the hell are you going to take over Europe tomorrow? And I don't understand why people don't get that point. Oh, Russia's going to kill us by 2030. We better arm up. Notwithstanding occasional and intriguing anomalies when a NATO commander, from Trump of course, let slip a fragment of the truth such that actually Moscow isn't really looking for conflict. Because they're not. In short, we're speaking about the severe and very sad, but also funny, mental condition known as Russophrenia. The afflicted live with an imaginary Schrödinger Russia occupying their suffering mind, a Russia that is always simultaneously half dead but very alive and kicking, so much so that it's about to roll into their living room on a tank. In that sense, the silly independent piece is merely an almost comically perfect specimen of an absurd genre. Its whole argument boils down to Russia is finished, that's why it's coming for us all. Yet there is something special about this particular emanation of Russophrenia. It's so easy to debunk, you must wonder if the author has any relationship to or respect for empirical reality at all. Don't believe it? Look for yourself. The address and panel Q&A featuring Putin at SPIEF were available online because that's what the Office of the Russian Presidency does, publishes the full video of major events in which Putin takes part with good English dubbing. It's respectable English dubbing. Once you do the tiny bit of elementary fact-checking, you see the puffy must be an elastic term of contemporary British English. Let's say Sir Keir Starmer is much more obviously lobster red on most days when he doesn't look pale and pasty with fear of the last scandal or defeat he's desperately trying to survive. More importantly, you'll also hear Putin give a speech, like I gave it to you, if anything determinedly factual, even a touch dry, crammed with statistics, clearly worked out, and balanced language. Whether you love or hate, like or dislike the man, the cornered loose cannon the Independent pretends to have spotted is pure shameless fiction. Likewise, Putin's Q&A response to a disingenuous public letter by Ukraine's leader was certainly not friendly, that indeed he would be disturbingly inadequate and in part deservedly caustic. But it was also calm and serious, pointing out the Kiev regime's primitive behind-the-scenes maneuvering. I'm not going to have time to finish this. What we should really be afraid of is the West with respect to Russia and not one of its so-called elites. I enjoyed you being here today. Hope you had a very good day and you continue to do so in wonderful central Missouri.